Today, we're digging into the work of a tax insider who spent 12 years looking at 10,000, that's right, 10,000, tax returns from millionaires. He wanted to answer a pretty simple question. Why do most of us work our tails off but never seem to build any real wealth? Well, the answer he found is surprisingly simple. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with crypto or some secret stock tip. So after going through a literal mountain of financial data, the author realized the whole blueprint for getting wealthy wasn't some crazy, complicated strategy. Nope, it all boiled down to this one simple sentence. It's not about what wealthy people do, it's all about how they do it. Okay, now this number, this right here, should really make you stop and think. $87,000. That was the average yearly income of the millionaires in his study. I mean, think about that. That's less than what a lot of experienced nurses, managers, or teachers make, and yet they built million-dollar portfolios. Which kind of leads to a huge question, right? If folks earning less than six figures are quietly becoming millionaires, why are so many people who make way more money living paycheck to paycheck completely stressed out with almost nothing to show for it? Well, the answer isn't about income. It's about a series of what the author calls little leaks. You can think of these as the small, almost invisible habits that just quietly drain your bank account month after month. The big difference is wealthy people don't just try to avoid these leaks, they build a system to plug them for good. So how do you build a system like that? Well, according to all that data, the very first thing you have to do is just destroy the biggest myths that we're all told about money. And then you replace them with a framework that actually works. And you've heard all these before, right? They get repeated so often, they start to feel true. But the hard numbers from those 10,000 tax returns, they show these are just stories we tell ourselves. The reality is, there are janitors who have retired as millionaires and Fortune 500 executives who have retired completely broke. The difference wasn't their paycheck, it was their system. And this idea just flips everything we think about wealth completely upside down. It's not about getting into some secret club or finding some hidden knowledge. It's just about putting a better system in place. A system that, as we're about to see, anyone can use. So what does this system actually look like on the ground? Well, the author breaks it down into 4 core pillars. And what's wild is that he found every single wealthy person he studied had mastered these 4 areas, whether they consciously knew it or not. And this is basically the whole roadmap. You start with the foundation, getting clear on your numbers. Then comes growth, where you make your money multiply. After that, it's about decisions, mastering those few choices that really matter. And finally, acceleration, which is all about speeding up the process. Now for this explainer, we're going to zero in on the 2 parts that have the biggest, most immediate impact, especially for people under 40. According to the research, a staggering 80% of your entire financial future comes down to just a few big decisions. And the 2 biggest leaks, the ones that basically sink the ship for most people, are how they deal with their cars and how they deal with their housing. Let's start with cars. For most people, a car is a financial disaster disguised as a reasonable monthly payment. We've somehow normalized pouring a huge chunk of our income into an asset that loses value the second we buy it, and it costs us way more than we think. I mean, just look at this brutal math. A brand new car loses over half of its value in just 3 years. That is insane. The wealthy understand this completely, and they let someone else take that massive financial hit. They almost always buy used because they see a car for what it is, a tool, not a trophy. $240,000. That's what the author figures you can save over your lifetime just by making smarter car choices. You know, like buying a car that's 2 or 3 years old and then keeping it for 8 or 10 years. That one decision alone could be enough to retire years earlier. All right, now for the second huge leak. Housing. We've all heard it a million times. It's practically gospel. Renting is just throwing money away. But what if that's actually one of the most expensive myths out there? Let's, actually look at the numbers. This is a really fascinating breakdown. In a lot of expensive cities, the total cost of owning a home, we're talking the mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs, is way higher than renting a similar place. Now, if you rent modestly, and this is the absolute key, you invest the difference in what you're saving, including that massive down payment you didn't need, you can end up with hundreds of thousands of dollars more than a homeowner after just a decade. So, once you've plugged those 2 giant leaks in your financial boat, The next and most crucial step is to build what the author calls your growth engine. And this isn't about becoming a stock-picking wizard, it's about a fundamental shift in your mindset. This is really the core of it. You have to go from thinking like an employee who just trades time for money to being the CEO of your own life. You shift from being a saver whose money is slowly eaten away by inflation to being an investor whose money is actually out there working for them. And you stop being just a consumer of things that break and become an owner of assets that grow. So, what's the secret to making all this happen? It's one word: automation. This is the single most powerful tool you have. For example, you set up a simple automatic transfer of, say, $500 from every paycheck straight into a low-cost investment fund. That's it. You pay yourself first, the system does the heavy lifting. The wealthy don't rely on amazing willpower to get rich. They use systems to build wealth automatically before they even have a chance to spend that money. So, the insider's blueprint is actually pretty clear, isn't it? The systems are proven by the data. The leaks that keep most people stuck are totally identified. At the end of the day, there's only one thing left that really determines whether someone makes it or not. And that really brings us to the final and most powerful takeaway. Building wealth isn't really about your income or your background or getting in on some secret. It's just a set of behaviors. It's about adopting a system to do common things in an uncommonly smart way, and then making the decision to start. The only variable really is you.